So the instructor at CAG Camp had us begin by making name tags, and he made us describe explicit and implicit factors. Explicit factors are things that you can tell about me just by looking at me. For example, I have black and brown hair, I wear glasses, and I have brown eyes. For example, I fence, I have a dog, and I live in San Diego. We did characteristics of ourselves, right there. What you contribute to, how you learn best, and what your interests and abilities are. The instructor also gave us cutout icons of depth and complexity. We were able to define these ones here, and we simply did not have enough time to go through these. This was a math sheet he gave us to do for the whole week. This is the 4 choices. You pick 4 numbers, and you can use any operation, even sketchy operations like taking these numbers and putting them next to each other. So like 1 and 9 make 19, even though they don't actually add up like that. You were able to do that, which in my opinion made it way too easy, but it was still fun. You have to make all the numbers from 0 to 100 using only combinations of these. I was able to get, I think, 81, maybe 81 numbers. I know somebody who got 93, which is pretty insane. They used, I believe, this number combination, 2, 3, 5, 7. At this point, it was pretty late in the day. The part 4 is organizing your information. He gives us 3 examples of how to organize your information, though of course there are many other ways to do that. The first example is to make a kind of, Miss Cox, you would understand this, a trophic level pyramid or a priority pyramid. You could obviously make Venn diagrams, sequences, timelines. You could organize it. I found another way to organize it on the ethics icon itself, and I made a slightly revised version of this organizational icon. I also have a big idea which I wrote to help me organize my information. The final part is assessment. This is mostly for the teacher. The teacher would go through these 4 judging aspects and combine them into a rubric, a checklist, and of course you'd write a reflection. Our CAG instructor is a history teacher, so he wanted our independent study to be related to the Constitution somehow. You can pick anything from the past or things from the present, like a natural disaster or the Area 51 raid so many people have talked about. That's what I chose, the Area 51 raid. So this is the first sheet where you select a topic. You decide on topics you like the most, topics you're uncertain about, and topics you like the least. And then you go to develop a set of questions. So, there are 3 types of questions you want to answer when you're doing an independent study. Factual questions, which relate directly to the details and evidence. Analytical questions, which relate to relationships, patterns, trends within the evidence. And then evaluative questions, which I did not make much of because this was not that opinionated. Evaluative questions are like multiple perspectives, what people agree with, what people disagree with. That must be your main question from the sheet before. And then you read from things you read, like online articles or books or whatever on the subject at hand. You write those details there. Discussion, like maybe an online forum or some TV show or with somebody else who's also interested in the matter. You can write down information there. Things you hear, and tactile, which is things that you can touch. Another thing we did was a personal profile. The first one was about Gandhi, as how they say it, and this is the note-taking sheet. You write down biographical data, the interests, contributions, evidence of ability, and evidence of tenacity. This is all relating to the person at hand, not yourself. The evidence of ability. Abilities are skills that the person already has. Like, for example, maybe you were born and you were just really good at sports, or somebody else was born, they were not that great at sports, but they had to work to get good at sports. That work to get good at sports is tenacity. The next one is about Albert Einstein. It's exactly the same thing, but we wanted to cover two categories. This triframe is about The Purple Robe and Anemones, which is an art piece by Henry Matisse. There are some icons that were already picked out for us. Multiple perspectives, details again, and patterns. But they were titled. These are your analytical questions, factual questions, and evaluative questions, similar to the independent study. Another thing we did was analyzing Guernica by Picasso. You can see the pattern here. Our history teacher really likes art. So we read an article about Guernica. He also showed us an image of Guernica. In this analyzation, we went through certain icons of depth and complexity. We had class discussions. We talked about things like proof of various facets of Guernica. We translated some representations of the image that may not have been specific, but we were able to translate some of those, and we went through the other icons also. Another thing we did is the Big Orange Blot by D. Manus Pinkwater. This was a very simplistic book, but the goal of it was for us to use our analytical skills on some item that was very easy to define, because, quote, books that are written for younger children have easier to define morals and big ideas, end quote. And so with this, we watched the video, then we analyzed it with language of the discipline, and we just wrote down words that we were kind of interested, that stood out to us. We wrote down various details, like Mr. Plumbean. We wrote down rules that we observed, multiple perspectives, unanswered questions we had, certain trends in the story, and we wrote down how things changed over time and the big idea that we found about the story, which is change is inevitable.